Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Aurelius Higgs, communication coach for parents of teens and spoken word artist. Please enjoy Aurelius Higgs. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm here with Aurelius Higgs, communication coach for parents of teens, as well as a spoken word artist. Welcome to the show.
Hello. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for welcoming me.
Well, I am very excited to have you join me today and to talk about creativity and all of the ways it shows up in your world and the things that you do. But before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Cool, yes. As you said so well, I'm a communication coach for parents of preteens. Very specific, I know. Um, Words are in my background. I studied communication, and a big part of what I do is also identity. I'm a third culture kid, and for the audience who doesn't know, those are kids who grew up in a situation or in a context where their passport doesn't necessarily match their parents or the country that they grew up in. It's many different reasons. But my mother's from the Philippines, my dad's from the Bahamas, and I, s- I right after college and getting my degree, university, I went to South Korea to be a missionary for some time, and my understanding of the divine grew. I don't say I changed my world beliefs, but they changed. The only constant is change. And so I still have a connection with that aspect. And then I taught in Saudi Arabia, Spain, Thailand, and then now I'm back in the Bahamas with my aging parents. And I still wanted to, I have a certain set of skills as a teacher and as a lover of words.
Mhm.
And now what I create is, I like to think I create connections through
Mm.
communication. My teacher told me quality of your life is directly related to your quality of communication.
Mm.
That's your ability to talk to yourself and connect and speak with and listen to others and connect. So that's what
Nice.
I do specifically at this formative time of the first transition or first breaking of your identity.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important. And so many people have no idea how to navigate it. So I'm glad they have a bit of a guide or someone there to support them. It's
Uh, it's funny. I hear you say people don't know how to do it. I think it's in us. It's natural. But as like you're a creativity coach, and like
Mhm.
we said at pre-call, we're all creatives.
Yeah.
Um, I think we do it collectively, and we are meant to parent collectively. And yeah, I've had this conversation many a times, just as
Well,
you've had your conversation. That's why we're
yeah, but I think it's so wonderful to have that collective parenting support. The cliche phrase, it takes a village experience, but to really live that is very different, to say it versus to live it, and to see how you live that, I think is pretty awesome.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm so curious, when you think about creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Now, mind you, in some circles we call this game recognizing game. I'm gonna ask you the same thing. All
Yes,
right.
I love it.
So creativity is, first of all, asking what you want, and then being intentional on putting things together or taking them apart. so that you move towards your desire. It's additive and subtractive, to use the technical words, and to create your desire. And the thing is, you're worthy of every desire you have as long as there are certain rules of the universe, right?
Sure.
Life supports those who support life. Um, that said, as you move towards it, you're going to get something unexpected. You're also going to be collaborations with other people, yourself, myself, higher forces and greater powers. But then that's the beauty of it. And the final thing I would say is if you're intentional on what you create or what you're moving towards, finding appreciation in it, and that's where it becomes art.
Hmm.
That's where it's just, yeah, I find value in this new thing that has emerged.
Nice. I love all of those pieces, the adding, the dismantling, the turning into something, creating aspects of it all. Yeah, the different, I don't know if you think consider them stages or steps, or is it all happening simultaneously?
Mm, yes. I, I hesitate because I mean, it, it, it all, it all has happened and it all
Mhm.
will happen. It's just that our awareness is at this point in time.
Ah, yes.
So,
Okay. Great.
yeah.
Yeah.
What is creativity for you?
Oh my goodness. Creativity is everything. Breathing, sleeping, moving,
Just the most passive
emotion,
things, breathing and sleeping.
right?
Yeah.
Breathing, sleeping, all of it. I think there are aspects of creative experience and creative expression in everything we do, we say, we think, and I think some of it is just orienting to that or looking at things with that lens, um, that can open up new ways of seeing things, new ideas, new opportunities for us.
Okay. What I'm hearing there is that last final part of it's new ways of seeing things at the very end. At the end of creativity, it's something new.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, something not experienced before.
sure. Or the 10% new that is new, you know.
That is new. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in working with the parents that you work with of preteens, and I imagine also working with the preteens themselves, when you come into that relationship and working and find the challenges that people are experiencing, how do you go about navigating those maybe more creative challenges?
Um, well, I like to okay. So in the framework I have, the show up framework, S is it starts with a strong identity
Mhm.
because everything is emergent from that identity. It's
Mm.
actually the etymology or the root of the word parent and educate. It means to bring forth. And I think that's what creativity is.
Oh.
There's that whole philosophical question. It says, is the universe pushing out from the middle or is it being pulled on the edges? Right? Because it's expanding. And the answer is yes.
Both and, yeah.
Both and, yeah. So the creative challenges are actually, remember when I said be intentional on what you want on the
Mhm.
outcome to be? It's when our desires don't align with everybody else's. And that's one definition of conflict in
Mm.
writing,
Mhm.
story writing. Conflict is just having different wants. That's also how you get internal conflict and external conflict. Internal conflict is just you have two different wants. You're not sure what you want. Now, that's the challenge in the outside world when they're kids, not sure of what they want, unsure of their identity, their parents who are trying to imprint themselves on their kids,
Mhm.
trying to find that balance of being the manager, moving into the role of the coach or guide on the side. Um, there are challenges that arise, mm, and you see the same challenges. Like you see them, but then they're also different each time, and
Sure.
therein lies the novelty. So you're curious. You just get
Mhm.
curious. Okay, well, how do you solve this puzzle?
Yeah. I'm Now I'm curious
Yeah.
about working in that preteen space with parents. Do you find that as people get older that they go through this another time in their life? Or is this, I guess, what is your experience of the kind of iteration of that identity discovery piece?
Yeah. You know, I think kids are here to, well, everybody is here for us to understand ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's never the thing, it's how we relate to the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's Relationships are important and they inform us about ourselves. And there's no greater bond than the thing that came out of you that looks like you, especially when that thing is grating on your nerves or it's revealing a lot about you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and parents approach it differently. There's some parents who, oh man, they're parents who, for the most part, most parents want their kids to have a better experience than they
Mm-hmm.
did.
Yeah.
There are other parents, and this is no slight on parents. I'm very gracious, but there are parents who, for whatever reason,
Mhm.
don't care as much.
Sure.
Ideally, that's why I came out of the classroom, and just to be real.
Mm-hmm.
When I say the reason I came out is because I want to work with people who do care about the desire they're moving towards, and a lot of students are like that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sorry. The question was how do certain parents approach it?
No, I guess my curiosity is around that identity piece of for
Mm,
preteens going through that as a preteen, do you then have another identity discovery piece further on and going through a similar process again?
yeah, yeah. I and the first point I was making was I think kids, if you are an introspective person, you're watching this person go through this new experience again.
Hmm.
And sometimes okay, I'll tell you what some reactions are just like, why don't they get it? Why are they immature?
Mhm.
And it's informing the parent, hey, these are the challenges that they're going through. You used to be there.
Mm, mhm.
And what I say is, what I do is personal development with the thing that's most relevant to the person.
Mhm.
The most relevant thing to you is your kid. And I'm just using their examples as what growth looks like. And I'm trying to help you get regulated and understand so that
Mhm.
you might communicate. Um, yeah, we learn about ourselves as we deal with challenges, and kids are
Absolutely.
challenging.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And your experience of being a kid, what's your
Mhm.
earliest memory of being creative?
But okay, that's different. My first earliest memory of being creative was I remember I got some pen, like a marker set,
Uh-huh.
for Christmas, and I must have been about 7 or so. That's my first memory of being creative with tools.
Hmm.
I did visual arts. Interestingly, I got an F in English in sixth grade, my only F,
Hmm.
and I didn't turn in my work because I think I have undiagnosed dyslexia,
Hmm.
where it used to jumble themselves up for me. But my teacher said, you have such beautiful thoughts, but I wouldn't turn in my work because I was ashamed of my spelling.
Oh, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
tricky conflict, right?
Uh, it's a tricky conflict. I resolved to just not doing it, which in retrospect wasn't the best, but
That is an option, right? Sometimes that's the
yeah.
most effective choice for us. Yeah.
Um, yeah. I And writing poetry, that came in when I was about 15 or 14.
Yeah. So what kind of brought you into that world of spoken word and writing poetry, and how did that show up in
Yeah.
your life?
Um, there was an HBO special called Slam Across America.
Ah,
Taylor,
I know it well.
Taylor Molly. Yeah, yeah. And then Mum's the Poet. This was before Def Poetry Jam.
Oh,
Um, yeah, Slam Across America. And I saw them doing that on stage. And I remember thinking, I want to do that.
Hmm.
And I sang that same night. I remember. Yeah. And
Nice.
one of the first poems I wrote was "W- Where in Hell is God?" And it's very, very, very short. You want to hear it?
I'd love to hear it if you are willing to share it. Absolutely.
But it says, Hell is not the depths of some bottomless pit where a demon slipped and fell. And no, hell is not the place where misplaced souls are held. Misplaced souls, lost souls. See, hell is the place where God doesn't dwell. Because think about it. There is no color black. There is only the absence of light, which creates the dark, which starts to create the thought, does hell exist in my heart? Because there is no cold. There is only the absence of heat, which creates the cold, which makes me start to think, is hell in my soul? Because hell is not the depths of some bottomless pit of where a demon slipped and fell. And no, hell is not the place where misplaced souls are held. You see, hell is the place, well, it's any place where God does not dwell.
Nice. I love it.
For those listening, there was
Yeah.
a
For
snapping
those
indication.
listening, we're applauding with snaps. Claps get a little funky on a recording. So
Yeah.
nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. Makes you think and
What it makes.
listen and yeah, reflect, or it makes me think and listen and reflect on my own
Yeah.
thoughts and my own ideas. So thank you for sharing that. In terms of, I mean, I know people who are spoken word artists and poets, that inspiration can come from many different arenas, but where do you find your inspiration for the things that you come up with or express?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. I write life. You
Hmm.
I write what moves me.
Mhm.
And I mean that's so general, but that's what expression is. It's pressing out what is on the inside. So
Hmm.
if you are the universe experiencing itself, there's something in here that you need to process and make sense of.
Mhm.
And writing is but organized thinking. You
Mm.
put it down on the paper. You, um, so I write life. I write what I'm experiencing, what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Mm. I love it.
It
That's
sounds deep, but that's so simple though.
but I feel like that's always the deepest. The simplest is always the deepest.
Sure, sure.
And in terms of like the expression of the sharing, how is that something that you have just watched other people do, or is it this is how these words want to be expressed from you?
Well, let me. I don't quite understand. When I express it, am I trying to express it like somebody else, or
Not necessarily, but how you present a poem is different than how you
Mhm.
normally talk.
Okay,
And
right?
so what is that an awareness that you have? Now I'm sharing this piece of poetry. Now I'm having a conversation and they're going to sound different because they are two different, versions of language and sharing. That's my
Yeah.
curiosity.
When I'm writing, of course, there's a purpose towards like you're saying. I want to move the audience this way. I want them to think this way, or so on.
Yeah.
But I keep it very simple in the sense I want to make it sound natural.
Mm.
I want to have some word play in there so that it's interesting to actually listen to.
Yeah.
So even if they don't get the sorry, and the first thing is I want to have some clear thought, some thesis,
Hmm.
right? So even if they don't get the thought, they're listening because, oh, it sounds nice. And if it doesn't sound nice, it's like, well, it sounds like he's just talking. It doesn't necessarily sound like a poem.
Right.
So it's in your ears.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I guess the performer in me is appreciating the performing aspect in someone else and that sharing.
Yeah. I will say this as a performer, if I'm holding your attention, I will command your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that when I'm on stage.
Yeah.
One, because I want to respect the most valuable thing you have, your time and attention.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm not on stage, I I don't eschew attention, but I'm just like the thing that makes my writing awesome. And I'm the most humble person I know. So,
Great.
but no, the thing I love about my writing, it's very introspective. And when
Mm.
people are just like, oh yeah, yeah, like the same awesomeness you see here, if any, it's found within you. Like you
Mm-hmm.
are me perspective. Like go do it, do it.
Nice. Well, speaking of that, if people may not feel creative or struggle to find what sparks their creativity, how would you encourage them to find that creative spark within them or just finding creativity in their life?
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever heard of the empowerment dynamic? TED, The Power of TED. It's a
No,
book.
I don't know. I
Okay.
have not. Tell us. Tell us
That's
about
awesome.
it.
Well, in the framework, there's a diamond shape, and at the apex of the diamond, it's called creator.
Okay.
And there's the creator, then there's the challenge, and then there's the mentor or teacher. That's the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we create through resistance, right? Stephen Pressfield, The Art of War, or The
Mm-hmm.
War of Art. Just
Mm-hmm.
there has to be resistance for us to push through, for something to express itself. That's literally the etymology, express, pressing it out of yourself.
Yeah.
In order to be a creative, you have to ask the creative question, which is, what do you want?
Mm.
That's where the intention comes behind.
Mm-hmm.
Intention, again, I show you, I love words. It means putting in tension.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually putting in a force to create something.
Mm.
So if somebody wants to be a creative, you have to ask, what do I want? And what you want is based on your emotions, your desires. Again, that's where the introspection comes in. That's
Mm-hmm.
where being human. You have to figure out life and who you are. Every artist who's a good artist, that's subjective, is I think they know themselves.
Mm. Yeah, so we're
And if
back at identity. This is the
and if they don't know themselves, they're creating art to know themselves. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. Do you think people can produce powerful, meaningful work without knowing themselves?
Yes, and yes, and um, if it's powerful, that depends on the audience sometimes because when you produce something, it's
Sure.
what did it say artist agnostic? I can't remember, but it's out there for other people to interpret.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, this is such a treat getting to chat with you. I have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Thank you. Um, Proud is the first word that came to me.
Hmm.
You know, there's this guy named BJ Fogg, and he has a book called Tiny Habits. But he says at the end of the loop, celebrate. We don't celebrate enough. And celebrate means gather together to honor. And when I create something, when I've made an effort to intentionally put something out there in the world, uh, it's a reaffirmation of my identity, saying that's like me. And it creates pride, creates trust in myself, confidence to say I can do stuff that's awesome that I appreciate, even if it's for an audience of one
Hmm.
in my body.
I love it. You are right. We aren't celebrating enough of ourselves and the things that we're putting out into the world. So I'm here to celebrate it.
And I'll cap all that off with Andy Warhol when he said, while everybody's talking about if it's art or not, just create one.
Yes, absolutely.
that was a paraphrase. You could look up the quote on Google if you want the actual thing. But while everybody else is talking about if it's art or not, just keep on creating.
What a beautiful reminder. Thank you so much. And if people want to learn more about the work you do, how could they go about finding it?
My work as a communication coach for parents of preteens is on LinkedIn or marcushiggs.com.
Mhm.
My poetry, I really don't promote so much, but this is my book, Inspire Life Through Words of Well-Being.
Mhm.
Um, I You can find it on Amazon. And you know what? I talked about proud and confidence and courage and all that. I'm sure you will appreciate it.
Mm.
I wrote this for me. These are my words for me, written in the
Mhm.
same spirit of Marcus named after. But yeah, it is a good book. It is.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I will put links to different pieces in show notes so people have easy access. And thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
I'm I'm vibing off of you, so thank you. It was wonderful.
I love it. I love the vibe. Yes,
Vibe attract our tribe.
absolutely. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.